So that is pretty much what the first session is. There's a couple of things, though, that I also want you to realize about this first session. Like for myself, I have a real bad memory. In fact, that's one reason I tell people confidentiality is assured with me, because I can't remember what you told me. But I do take a lot of notes, but I ask permission about that. I'll say, listen, do you mind while we're talking if I put down a note or two about what you're saying to me? That's very, very helpful to me. It's something that I really, really need to do. But again, it's an expectation. You want to do that, okay? You want to set times for the next meeting. You may want to make assignments. One assignment, by the way, that we give almost, not almost, it's virtually everybody that we coach, is to have them take StrengthsFinder, and then we run it through Core Clarity. I want to know my coachee's strengths from the next time. Sometimes we do it, by the way, on the phone in the initial contact. Say, would you go and take StrengthsFinder? By the way, there's about 4 or 5 books that you can buy that has the code in the back, that you go to their website, they'll ask you for a code, or I think they charge, they'll just ask you, it's only a few bucks to take it, I think. But if you get the book, one of them is called StrengthsFinder 2.0 by a fellow by the name of Rath, R-A-T-H, is the cheapest, but it has an explanation of each of the 34 strengths, which is quite helpful, actually. And in the back is a code. So you don't want to go on Amazon, by the way, and get a used book, because it won't have the code in the back. So you want to make sure that code is there. You open the code, it has the website. You go to the website and just take it. It takes about 20 minutes. And then you get the profile back, okay? And then if you talk to the people at AAC, they'll tell you, with the Core Clarity and that kind of thing, as to how exactly some of those things can be further accomplished. I like that, though, sitting down, because remember, I'm looking for story and I'm looking for bent. StrengthsFinder and Core Clarity is the best thing I've ever seen for establishing what the person's bent is in life, and I want to know that, because as they start talking to me about their ministry, what they do, how they do it, see, I'm always running that through how are they wired. So if they tell me that, they're burned out in ministry and they can't take it anymore and blah, 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 it isn't necessarily, we're going to talk about conflict later on, and it could be just particular conflict they're in. But often it has to do with, this is just, the vast majority of what they do is not their bent. It's draining them. It is not their passion. It is not fulfilling them in any particular way. It's become a drudgery. So I like to have that bent, that Core Clarity profile. That it's the pyramid. You saw that in the slide presentation there. I like to have that, and often I'll have it right in front of me. I'll be sitting there every time I talk to them until it gets burned into me. Okay, this is the way this person is wired, and now they're telling me this, and I can see why they're telling me particular problems have developed. Such as, let me give an example. The circle, you can see this in the slides, it has the Core Clarity circle there, and it divides into 4 quadrants then. The horizontal line there is what we call the water line, so that everything below the water line is internal, and everything above the water line is external. So internal, the green is how I reflect, how I think. The orange there on the right side under the water line is how I motivate myself. On the top is the blue, how I relate to others, and then how I motivate others. You don't even need to know a person's strength. All you need to do is know what we call their core drill, which comes from Texas oil language, where they drill down into a soil sample to find out what is actually there. So let's say you're working with somebody and you look at their core drill. You look at the fact that their strengths all lie below the water line. They have nothing in the blue and nothing in that purple or magenta. Okay? Now that's going to be interesting then, because a lot of ministry involves interacting with other people, right? You'll probably realize pretty early on, this is also the I on the Myers-Briggs, the introverts. I'm an extrovert on the Myers-Briggs, which means that interacting with people, and I've got blue in my profile on the StrengthsFinder, what that means is I'm energized by people. An introvert is somebody who is drained in relationship. Okay, so if a person has nothing on the top, let's say they have only on the bottom. In fact, one of my best friends has only green. He has 5 green strengths. He is the wickedest, smartest person I've ever known. He's creatively genius. But it also says that relating to other people could be tricky. Now, it's funny, for him it's not, because he relates to people all through from his green. He's really taken a lifetime. He's one of the best counselors I've ever seen, and he's taken a lifetime to learn how to connect to other people, but he doesn't do it naturally, okay? So I can look at that and realize, okay, so I've got a minister sitting in front of me who's supposed to visit and stand in the narthex and greet everybody and, you know, blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff, because there's a real parental piece of this whole thing I'll talk about later. And that's going to say to me right off the bat, this is going to be very, very draining to this guy. He'd probably rather be in his study, reading theology, maybe some of the exotic church father stuff, you know, thinking about it, and all that kind of stuff. Walking out into the narthex, having people come into his office to talk to him is a real pain and drain. That's important to know. That's his bent. So as I'm coaching him, I've got it in front of me, and he's telling me his story about, you know, where he's wearing out ministry, and I can almost say to him, gosh, I would think that I'm looking at your profile here, and you have nothing on the top here, which is how you interact with other people. I would think that interacting with other people is a major drain on you, and it's also a major expectation of you. You've got to visit. You've got to counsel. You got to talk to people. You can't be a ministry in your office, you know, and tell them to send you an email every now and then. That's not the way ministry unfolds. So right off the bat, now hopefully, and I've seen this, by the way, ministers who get into multiple staffs who have, if I was just with one who's a friend of mine, he has, I just work with their whole staff, and they have 5 ministers on their staff. Well, in that sense, he can get into his bent and stay in his 5% a lot. And he just, okay, you do spiritual direction. This is what he does. He has a guy doing spiritual direction. He's got a guy doing outreach. I was trying to think around the table here. He's got an executive pastor doing the admin stuff. So he has the luxury to sit around, and he does. He does a lot of speaking. He does a lot of speaking outside of his own parish. And he loves to speak and think and that kind of stuff. And he has the luxury of doing that. If he's a single pastor in a parish, he doesn't have that luxury. He's constantly changing hats. Okay, now I'm the counselor. Okay, now I'm the administrator. Okay, now I'm the preacher. Okay, now I may be the sexton for all I know. You know, I mean, just doing all these different responsibilities, and I guarantee you 3 out of the 4 he's not going to do real well. And maybe 3 out of the 4 are going to be really draining to him. So knowing that, as this person shows up in your office for coaching, or you show up at the Denny's or Friendly's or wherever you're doing this, knowing that will give you a real insight as to what you're probably going to start hearing. Depending on, that's why I want to know how their ministry's gone. One question you may want to ask them, by the way, I just thought of this, and that is, tell me in your ministry, or if you worked in the secular world, tell me when you felt that you were at your best. You were really energized by what you were doing. Tell me what you were doing and how that was actually operating in your life. Tell me about that. One of the people who works for my consulting firm, he used to race America's Cup, those big sailing ships all over the world. He's a professional racer. They still want him on all their crews because he's incredible. Although here's what he's incredible about. He has one of these talents they call restorative. He loves to fix broken things. And that's probably number 34 for me. I can't stand it. I'd throw everything out, you know. He loves to fix it. Well, he was fine on these sailing ships when things were broken. He was bored out of his mind. He used to tell me he's sailed literally all over the world, in the North Sea, down in Australia and Africa and all these different kind of places. He said once everything was up and going and fine and you're just sitting on the boat, he got bored out of his mind. And these races go on for days. So that was a major drain for him. What was really energizing for him was when something broke. Then he was incredibly energized and felt like he was at his full potential at those times. So knowing that becomes very, very important. Now, in your notes, and I'm not going to go into this to a whole lot because we need to go on to some other things here in a little bit, but I put in here people who have particular problems, like a person who, like this is a waste of time, who would say that to you. Now, I would doubt that you're going to run into that in your coaching, because I would think that all the people seeking you out for coaching are going to be motivated. A number of the people that I coach actually aren't. In other words, they were doing a whole program for their entire office or their department or their agency or whatnot, and they're assigned coaches, and they're not motivated, okay? And they think it's a big waste of time. But you can at least look at that. One is the motivational problem, okay? Some people aren't particularly motivated. They want to sit and listen to you dump information into their head. I do not like that personally, to do that. I want my coachees to be very actively involved in the process. Now, it does bring up the next one here, and that is the coachee that rambles on and on. Some people will see you as a perfect dumping ground. And then when you try to help them with a particular problem they give you, they'll yes, but you, is what we say. Oh, yes, but. Hey, have you tried this? Yes, but. Yes, but. Yes, but. And they'll just ramble on. And knowing that becomes important for you to know how to be effective in that situation. I'm giving you some notes about that as to what maybe you could do in those kinds of situations. Because somebody rambling on and on says to me that they're not necessarily on a particular agenda. And I want to be working with them on something specific, not just listening to them for an hour, week after week, telling me how rotten their vestry is, or why they can't get their sexton to do anything, or whatnot. I want them to be working on things, and then as I give them assignments to do, I want to make sure that I'm hearing that they're doing them.